the most powerful companies in the world, and I'm not talking about Meta, I'm not talking about Google, I'm talking about where they get their money from, the advertisers, because they're tasked with selling the product to you. So by definition, they have to have more money because they take the proceeds and money from every company on the planet. They are the ones that are the werewolves. They are the ones that are sowing doubt, fear, so that they can convince you, if you just wear this cologne, if you just have this haircut, if you just wear this watch, that you're much of a less of a human being unless you actually have that Gucci belt or the Gucci slides. And again, this version of reality that they're presenting to you, the only way that that version of reality manifests itself and unfolds in space and time and actually becomes reality is with your participation. Welcome to this week's episode of the Globe Games podcast, where we analyze current events from a mature, rational, and balanced perspective. And I've stated multiple times, probably throughout every episode, at least in the last episode for sure, that one of the ways that I like to interpret reality is through analyzing the micro. So if you want to understand the macro, look at the micro. In the previous episode, I talked about if you want to understand the government, look towards your family. If you want to understand the economy, look at your own balance sheet when it comes to expenditures and earnings, liabilities, assets, and the like. So if you want to understand extremely complex systems, you look at the micro. Now, you won't have the most detailed explanation of that system, but you'll have a general idea of how that system functions. One way that we can understand human psychology is through games. Games, games, including sports, I truly believe uh, you get a glimpse in who the reptilian ancient person is you're dealing with. And what I mean by that is everybody, civilized society has made us with certain norms and attitudes towards what being a civilized person is. But at the end of the day, when things go south, when you're when you're in a really tough situation, this reptilian part of the brain, this ancient brain, the amygdala, that's the center of the emotions that get produced in your brain, particularly anything having to do with fear and anxiety. When you're in a fight or flight or freeze situation, something highly stressful, all of our polite norms and the civilization basically gets drained out of us, and we revert to caveman times. And when we revert to caveman times, we get a small glimpse into who we really are as people. So, whenever we see somebody, doing like making a bad pass in football or messing up a penalty kick in soccer, you point and laugh and say, "Oh, I would have done so much better." Or if there was, I don't know, God forbid, a mass shooting, you think that you're the hero and that you would stop and prevent it. Well, it isn't until you're in a highly stressful situation like that that the true character of your soul comes out. And like I stated a bit earlier, games and sports and games in general, so simulated extreme events give us a small window into who we really are. And it gives us a small window into, primarily, in my opinion, our psychology. Are you a person? This is. I love to play basketball. I love to play sports in general, but I love basketball. And you can really judge a person by seeing how they play basketball or sports in general. So, do they have grit? Are they playing just as hard on defense as they are on offense? Are they vocal? Do they moan and whinge? How are their effort levels? How is their skill? Do they compensate for their skill through work ethic and a hard defense? Are they a team player? And all of these attributes that are necessary for a well-rounded basketball player are obviously transferable to real life. And this is why sports is such a great gateway into developing character that is applicable to real life. And those types of traits that I just stated, like grit, tenacity, vocalness, leadership, never backing down, not being intimidated by better skilled people or players. Those are all psychological traits. Believe it or not, they're psychological traits. Now, you're using these psychological traits to execute a physical task, but that's what reality is. That's what psychology is. Psychology is useless if you don't actually do anything with it. This is why people have very little, well, myself, I have very little respect for most of my university professors. Um, I would say 75 to 80% of my university professors are career academicians. Aca aca are a career academicians. So, they've been in school their whole life. There are a couple, and I can name them right now. Dr. Cheryl Collier, she was a former CBC journalist. Um, what's his name? Dr. Anderson, Dr. Bill Anderson, he was in the private sector before, and he basically transitioned to the university system. But even then, he managed a public-private partnership with the government of Canada. So he still had his hands in the corporate pie and in the government pie, which is what you want in Canada. Then there was Dr. Crawford, an economist, millionaire that owned his own company, retired, and then got bored and said, you know what, I'll teach at the university to kind of pay it forward. And off the top of my head, that's about it. And I've had, I'd say, 15 to 20 different professors in my university career. And like I said, 75 to 80% of them are career academicians. So they were in school their entire life. So they are all theory and no practice. So psychology is fine, well, and dandy if you understand if you have certain theories on how the human brain operates and how the human animal operates in an individual basis, and then even more importantly, how they operate when they're in a group. So there's the theory aspect of it, but then actually using that knowledge to your advantage to essentially manipulate people is a whole other ball game. So um, that's why sports and playing games is such a useful insight to people that like to utilize psychology to make their way in the world. Because believe it or not, hate the player, don't hate the player, hate the game. You are being manipulated everywhere. You're being manipulated by your spouse. You're being manipulated by your parents. You're being manipulated by your boss. You're being manipulated by your teacher. You're being manipulated by society. Manipulation doesn't have to be negative. A good parent, a good pet owner is going to steer their pets in the right direction. A wise parent knows how to use carrots and sticks to raise their children right. That's manipulation. A good parent knows the difference between telling a child the truth at age 7 and then telling him or her the truth at age 12. A good parent understands the value of believing white lies when you're a child. A good parent won't spoil who Santa Claus really is until the child finds out on his or her own. Because you're only a child once in lifetime. So good parents understand the special period of life that they're in where they truly do believe in something as fantastical as Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy. So, ergo, if you are a person who understands the value of psychology and how people think, Not only are you going to be able to be in better control of your own facilities, you're going to be able to spot much more easily when someone else is trying to manipulate you. Now, this is a nice dance. Um, to my listeners out there who have been, for example, in a position of power, when you sense that somebody is trying to kiss your butt, it's if it's done in a tasteful and subtle way, you almost appreciate it. You understand the effort and you appreciate the effort that this person is trying to do. Where the wisdom comes in is you don't allow that to cloud your judgment when you have to execute on certain decisions. If you allow butt kissing to cloud your judgment, then you're the one that's not in control. You are being controlled. So that's that fine line. That's the benefit to understanding human psychology. Not only will you understand yourself better and have better emotional awareness and understanding when you can and can't do certain things, but you'll also understand other people better. And then you'll understand if they're trying to manipulate you and steer you in the wrong direction. And frankly, it makes life easier and makes you walking throughout and navigating life easier because you'll have a better ability to manipulate people as well. I can't tell you how many doors this has opened. My smile my smile and solid eye contact. That is your best weapon in the civilized world. So psychology and sports psychology and game psychology and experimentation, game like experiments. They put us in a situation that we aren't usually in our normal day to day lives. And they bubble to the surface the people we really are. Maybe you like to think of yourself as a good person, but what if you had to do something bad to save your life, the life of your family, and the life of your friends? What if you had to commit evil to do something good? And and like any life form in the universe, what unites all life in the universe, from the most intelligent of species to the most primitive of macrophages and bacteria, what unites us all is our will to survive. The definition of life is essentially it's the opposite of nothing. Yeah, and with that type of a crude of a definition, you could say that, a star is something, that rocks are existence, that they are a form of life. It's something. It's the opposite of a vacuum. It's the opposite of nothing. And we all want to exist. We all want to survive. At the end of the day, when your survival is at stake, when you, who are an animal, you're just a civilized, you're a tamed animal, but an animal nonetheless, when you are backed into a corner, you will do whatever you gotta do to survive. And this is why games are so fun. They give us a glimpse into what we would do if we were put into extreme situations. So like I said before, sports are a great way to practice survival. So it's literally physical, like the ability to jump and run for long distances and to be skilled so that we can assassinate and kill the things that we needed to kill while we were hunting. Sports, in my opinion, is essentially a leisurely practice version of warfare or survival. It's existed for thousands of years. And just because mass media sports is one thing doesn't mean that we didn't play games when we were primitive ancient people. I guarantee you we did. I guarantee you we set up a little target and then we took turns throwing rocks at it from 10, 15 meters away to pass the time. And whoever hit the target, got a little bit of more meat or roots or vegetables at dinner time. We've done it for since we've been basically Homo sapiens. And there is one game, there's one game that truly opened my eyes to how deplorable, despicable, manipulative, evil, conniving all of us can be. And that is the game of Werewolf. The game of Werewolf I played around 3 or 4 years ago, and the first time I played it, I was hooked. Absolutely hooked. I love games in general. Me and my friends, we went through a big Settlers of Catan phase where we would order a pizza, order 5 pizzas, and play Settlers of Catan for literally 7-8 hours straight. And then maybe 1 or 2 of us wouldn't talk to each other for a week. Because if anybody's played Settlers of Catan, you understand how political it gets. You understand how you have to play off of the players. You have to make do with the resources that you got. You have to make the most of the hand that you were dealt in life. And it really pits you one friend against the other. Well, the game of Werewolf is like Catan, but on steroids. The game of Werewolf essentially forces you to cheat, lie, deceive the people you love most in this world. Just for sport. Just for fun. And those that are the best liars, the best deceivers, the best cheaters, they're the most successful at the game. So one of the craziest parts about the game is when you play it, because obviously you play board games and video games with people that you're relatively close to. You know, you might play with a secondhand colleague, especially Werewolf, because Werewolf is a 7-player game minimum. You can play up to like 16 players or even more. Actually, the game changes, the rules change if you have 16 players or more. So yeah, you can play it in almost as much as people as you want, from what I understand. But generally speaking, you will play games with people that you essentially know, or you think you know, until you play Werewolf together. And then the person that might have been as quiet as a mouse, the little girl that's just shy of 5 feet, who was this little pipsqueak who you thought was all innocent and a little princess, might turn out to be the most conniving little demon there is. And all because she wanted to win at the game of Werewolf. So I'm not gonna bury the lead. What we're going to do right now is we're going to watch just a quick 1-minute video explaining the rules of the game. And then we'll check back in. All right, let's watch.
Werewolf, a game of lies and deceit you play with your friends. There are 4 main roles in Werewolf: a moderator, a doctor, a seer, and of course, the werewolves. Everyone else is a villager. The game starts at night. Everyone's eyes are closed, heads are down, and hands are slapping the playing surface to cover up any noises. The moderator first asks the werewolves to wake up and silently make a decision as to who they are going to kill. Then, the doctor wakes up and is asked to heal someone. Finally, the seer wakes up and the moderator confirms or denies if the person they point at is a werewolf. In the morning, the group finds out who was killed. This is where the game gets interesting. You see, anyone can be a werewolf, and it's up to you to find out who's telling the truth through whatever technique is necessary. Lies, deceit, accusations. You might have to swear on all that you hold sacred that you are absolutely not a werewolf, even though you know you're lying to your closest friends and family. Once everyone agrees upon a potential werewolf, they kill them off, one day and wolf at a time. The game proceeds in this fashion until the werewolves have killed the majority of the villagers, or the villagers have killed the werewolves. Werewolf, a game unlike any other.
Okay, so now we looked at the rules of the game. Pretty simple. When I played it in New Zealand, it's now, you can actually download an app right now and you connect it to a Bluetooth speaker, and there's like an announcer. And the announcer announces when you're asleep, when you're not asleep, when to debate, who's died, but there still needs to be a moderator of the game. And it's such a fun party game. When we like the first game, just like with any board game, when you play it first, when the rules are explained to you, as simple as it sounds, you need to play the game once and then you'll understand it. And after playing the game once, I remember like I said, hooked. The only downfall, not the downfall, but like the only drawback behind the game is you need at least 7 players. So you need at least 7 people to play it with. But if you do, oh man, fantastic, amazing. And I'll tell you this. I'm not a good liar. I'm not a good liar for the simple fact that I'm not a good liar for the simple fact that I don't like to lie. And because I don't like to lie, I didn't get a chance to practice lying as much as other people. Now, there's this interesting theory that it's a theory of child psychology and child development, and basically states that the earlier your child starts to lie, the better, because apparently lying and manipulation at a very young age is a sign of intelligence, because it's essentially you're getting the world to warp to your wants and needs. So it's the mental aspect of it. So instead, the physical is you, I don't know, foraging for roots and berries and being able to hunt. That's the physical aspect of it. Obviously, it's paired with your central nervous system. But since we're social animals, our ability to lie, deceive, and manipulate, both good and bad, is essentially that, but a mental version when you're dealing with other human beings. Because one of the reasons why the Homo sapiens won out compared to the other early hominids was our ability to participate and agree in larger groups. So I forget which. I think we come from Australopithecus, but there was other competing hominids that we were competing against in 250 to 350,000 years, and the only reason why Homo sapiens won out is because we could collaborate together in larger groups. That's it. So whereas, I don't know, a rival species could only have a cohesive unit up to 10, we could have a cohesive unit up to 100, roughly speaking. And that's why we won. And we won because in order for you to be able to get 100 people on the same page, you have to be a good communicator. In order for you to be a good communicator, you have to be a good manipulator. It's just a part of the job. I'm trying to convince you. I'm trying to tell you, no, this is how we should do it instead. You need to trust me. You need to, even though you've never witnessed me do what we're about to do, you need to trust in my ability and in my experience. Get on the same page. If we work together, we will win. That's manipulation. That's lying. That's deceit. So when your child exhibits lying at a very young age, it means that its ego is developing in a very healthy way. It's essentially normal, because lying and manipulation and deceit is a part of the human condition. It's like saying a human being, it's like being born deformed if you can't lie. It's like having a deformity. Unfortunately, it happens. And when it happens in the brain, unfortunately, when you can't lie, then there's also, other unfortunate mental, cognitive abilities that also go, So lying is as integral to the human body and mind as is urination and defecation. It's quite literally part of your existence. And unfortunately, if you want to navigate this world, especially now that we're more interconnected and more influential than ever, you have to get good at it. You have to get good at manipulation, or at least understanding it so that when someone's doing it to you, you can pick up on it. You can smell it. And the game of Werewolf is such a fun game because it puts you in this extreme situation of survival, And in order for you to survive the night and not be eaten by the werewolves, you as a villager have to be able to collaborate against other people and manipulate other people to believe you that you're not a werewolf. That's a form of manipulation. But on the flip side, as a werewolf in the game, you have to lie and convince people that you're not the werewolf, because both factions are trying to survive. They're trying to get through one more night. So the name of the game is lying. The better liar you are, the better your odds of surviving. And the better odds of your survival, the better odds you have of winning the game. So now, the reason why I'm doing this episode is because obviously I had a lot of fun playing the game. I only played it a handful of times because I could never get into a big group enough people to where we can do it again, but that's neither here nor there. But I also came across this YouTube reel, which kind of inspired me to do this episode because, well, we'll play the reel, okay? And then I'll explain why I got inspired to do this episode and what the structure of this episode is going to look like, all right? So let's watch the reel right now.
Have you ever heard of a game called Werewolf?
No.
Everyone gets a piece of paper. It's either got villager written on it, but two have the word werewolf. Someone runs the game to make sure no one's cheating, and they go, okay, it's nighttime, everyone close your eyes. Werewolves choose someone to kill, and the werewolves go. They say, okay, everyone close your eyes, it's morning time, open them again. During the night, Francis was killed. There's then a conversation, and this is where it gets interesting, between all the villagers and the two werewolves over who the werewolves are. Then at the end of the day, the villagers have to decide who they're going to kill, and they say, well, we're going to kill Constantine. It's revealed by the person running the game, I'm afraid Constantine was a villager. And the game continues. The villagers win the game if they kill both werewolves. The werewolves win the game if they kill all but two villagers. And the werewolves usually win. The game was invented by a student of sociology in Russia who wanted to prove his thesis that an uninformed majority will always lose a battle of information against an informed minority. So that just shows when you have hidden information, you can completely manipulate a large group of people.
An uninformed majority will always lose to an informed minority. Boy, if that is not the best definition of power you've ever heard, I don't know what is. Again, let's repeat that again because it hits the nail on the head of micro, macro, everything in the world, every human relationship that you've ever had. When you hear this quote, so many different scenarios should come into your head from your own personal experience in your own life or what you're witnessing on the world stage right now, what globe games they're playing. And it should fire off certain cylinders and sparks in your brain where it's like, wow, this quote is so true. An uninformed majority will always lose to an informed minority. Knowledge is power. Information is power. The priestly class, the gatekeepers, have always run human society. As far back as you can go into human history, identify the power class and you'll come to two power classes, essentially, vying and competing for power. The nobility and the priests. And there's this dichotomy between the two, and sometimes they switch, and sometimes they marry, and sometimes they blend and switch sides, but it's always the warrior and the shaman. The war king, the warlord, and the prophet, the leader, the religious leader. The king, the pope. And you go back into history and you understand, how could the pope, how could the priest be as powerful, if not more powerful, than the king, than the warlord, than Genghis Khan? Someone who could slit, you know what, of the pope, the shaman, the priest, whatever. But if they did, they would get overthrown right away. How come the priestly class of the Egyptians, for example, you should look at who ran Egyptian society. It was the priests. The priestly class had such a tight hold on Egyptian society that it's one of the reasons why they succumbed. Because essentially the religion got too complicated. There's like 300 gods, and they basically lost institutional power over the Egyptian people because it got too complicated, essentially. But why is it that the priestly class, and think of who is the priestly class, because priestly classes exist in every human society. Who is the priestly class in Western society today? Is it the church? Hell no. No. Remember, what do the people of today worship? Where are the churches? The agnostics and the atheists, because they do have a god. They do worship something, someone. It's just different. It expresses that religious gene. Yeah, sure, they might not be Christian, Muslim, Jewish, or Buddhist, but they do have that same gene that makes Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and Jews believe in their own religions. And it's the need to believe in something greater than yourself. It's the need to believe in some bigger unit that you are a part of. And it used to be the nation, but the nation was a little. The nation didn't go far enough because the nation was too new of a creation, and nationhood and nations within states, they usually coincided with religion. Religion was much more powerful than nations and nation status, because nations can change with borders, but religions don't. Just talk to the Jews. So who do the atheists and agnostics worship today in Western society specifically? Who is their priestly class? Well, that's obvious. It's science. Their god is one of technology. Their god is one that is designed by man. And the people that have the ability to design and build something like this camera that I'm talking into are revered with such awe and inspiration that we quite literally place them at God status. The scientists, the physicists, everybody who makes the modern world tick has achieved priesthood. And everything that comes with religion, dogma, heretics, church going, you could absolutely equate it to the atheist and agnostic type. They don't go to the Church of Jesus Christ, they go to the Church of Steve Jobs. They don't pray at the altar of Christ, they pray at the midnight release of the iPhone 16. Okay. They don't read and believe in scripture. They believe and read scientific journals and hold everything that leading scientists, like our favorite scientist of the last decade, scientist Dr. Fauci, they hold their words as dogma, as scripture. Quite literally. Okay. It is the priest class coupled with the traditional power authorities. So in this case, it's not the kings, it's the prime ministers and presidents and multilateral, multinational corporations and organizations. It is the technocratic elite, the technocrats, the experts of everything that have ascended to priesthood, and they are in this binary, cozy relationship with the other elites of our society, And they're the ones that essentially are the gatekeepers to what truth is. So they are the informed minority that manipulates the uninformed majority. And if you have reached past the age 25 and you still do not realize that this game Werewolf is actually the game of life, if you believe everything that your politician says, if you believe everything you see on the mainstream news, if you believe everything that's said in your personal religion, if you place certain human beings above reproach, above fallibility, above corruption, if you believe that certain human beings cannot be corrupted by utilitarian belief systems, that is to say, we will do something evil to achieve a greater good, if you believe that these people don't think like that, I don't know what movie you're watching. The only conclusion I can come to is two things. You're ignorant, so you've got your head in the sand, and life has been so good to you, and the system you've benefited so much from the system that you had no reason to question it, and you had every reason not to question it so that you don't shatter the illusion. So you're ignorant, or you're stupid. You're stupid. You're stupid. Stupid people exist. And that is one of the themes of Werewolf. How the villagers can lose is mainly by stupid people who cannot use logic, reason, and deduction to deduce who the werewolf is. And as a result, they get influenced by the smart werewolves to kill their own villagers. That's how a stupid person can take a shit in a beautiful punch bowl. That is the frustration of social media. That is the frustration of living in modern connected life. It's that the stupid people have the loudest voice and the biggest reach, and the werewolves that control their reach, that control their voice, that amplify their voice, do it so that they can sow confusion, division, nihilism, so that the villagers, us, destroy ourselves. If you can't see that reality literally operates like that, human reality operates like this, I don't know what movie you're watching, and I would like to have a handful of the blue pills you take every day with breakfast. Because clearly you've never even been offered the chance to swallow the proverbial red pill. At its core, the game of Werewolf is about a game of hidden identities, misinformation, and mob justice. And figuring out between all these three factors, how they play into each other, how you can use them as a werewolf or as a villager or as a doctor and a seer to win the game, to win the game of life. The game creates a closed system where truth becomes currency. Where truth becomes currency. In a system where you don't know who you can trust, the ability to gain a person's trust is it's worth its weight in gold. Now ask yourself, the most advanced companies, the most profitable companies on this planet right now, which are technology companies, companies like Google, Amazon, Meta, they would cease to exist. They would have not even existed had it not been for advertising. The reason why these companies are so profitable is because advertising companies fund them. They collect and sell our data to advertising companies. Ergo, advertising companies technically have more money than the most profitable companies in the world. So if the most powerful companies are directly dependent on advertising companies, doesn't that make advertising companies the most powerful companies in the world? If we follow that line of reasoning, what do advertising companies do? They try to influence and manipulate us to buy something, to do something, to be like someone, to think like something. They present us with the truth. That is their currency. That is what they operate on. They operate on, we are the ones that are telling you the truth, our version of the truth. And this is why the pursuit of truth and living true to yourself, it's not something that just popped up in the post-social media age. Living a truthful life, being know thyself. These are inscriptions that were made thousands of years ago. These were debates that were had in the Parthenon in Athens 3,000 years ago. The priestly class, in this case, the advertisers, the people, the minority that has access to the truth, can quite literally not shape reality, but present a version of reality that then you ingest as reality and project as reality. They need your participation to make it true. If you launch a multi-million-dollar advertising campaign, the only way that that product can become a product is if people buy it. If they don't, if they reject that truth of advertising, the product ceases to exist because they go out of business. That is why most deep thinkers today, anybody that values populism and anyone that values personal freedom, understands that we cannot vote our way out of this mess that we're currently in. But you can do one thing that terrifies them the most. You can decide how to spend your money. Because if we all decided to spend our money, and not all of us, if a critical mass of us decided to spend our money in a certain way, well, now we are dictating truth. You can't force me to buy something I don't want to buy. The only way that they can force me is by making it free. And that's why the journey to freedom, the true first step, is by rejecting the lies. When you feel powerless, when you analyze the current situation, whatever country you may be watching this from right now, because every country is messed up right now, and you feel powerless, you feel like an insignificant little mole that you are, that I am, The greatest act of defiance that you can have towards your politician is not voting for another politician. The greatest act of defiance is not to believe a single word that they are saying. And the more people disbelieve the official narrative, whatever it may be, whether it be political, corporate, philosophical, religious, the more people take private measures in their own private lives up here to stop believing what they are selling us, the more and more people do that in their private lives, after long enough time, the private will seep out into the public, and then the narrative will change, and as a result, reality changes. It quite literally starts with you. And that bit of information, that piece of golden knowledge has been defended by the priestly class since the dawn of civilization. And it is this simple sentence that they have guarded with Egyptian tombs, with the depths of the libraries of Alexandria, at Fort Knox. This sentence is more powerful than all the kings and queens that have roamed this entire earth. And it is this sentence: you are what you think about. You are what you think about. You are what you think about. So don't you dare let them tell you what to think about. Because the minute you outsource your thinking, that gift that separates you from a cockroach, that thing between your eyes, that thing that you can still use if, God forbid, you were paralyzed from the neck down, that thing that has created, manifested, literally everything you see around you, the chair you sit in, the paint on your walls, everything exists because of this. And you know what? They're teaching you how not to use it. They're teaching you how to turn it off. They're teaching you outsource your thinking to us, the priestly class. You, uninformed majority, you can trust us, informed minority. And this is why the game of Werewolf is so fun. Sorry I took it in a really dramatic turn, but I find it so inspirational. Because a little game like this can really open your eyes to how it can open you to the game of life. In Werewolf, the players are judged by their tone, persuasion, and suspicion, not facts. How loud are you? Are you pleading your case? Are you defensive enough? Are you emotional enough? Are you crying desperately, begging to convince other people that you're not a werewolf? Furthermore, how good are you at deducing who the werewolf is and then trying to convince the other villagers of, yes, they're truly the werewolf and I'm not the werewolf, but they are, and this is why. You could see how because you're not operating on facts, because you're operating essentially on emotions, you can see how applicable that is to real life. And this kind of reminds me of what I was reading about the other day, and I had a conversation with a friend, Martin, from Paris, France, and we were talking about, the effects of social media, as we usually do, and how people younger than us kind of have like this social retardation where, they just don't have like certain social skills, like as small talk or deep talk, or they just sound like they're on this repetitive loop, and like they're just like a real life meme almost. And we were saying how the different forms of media you consume shape you into a certain way, and it's because depending on the media that you're consuming, it's exposing you to certain people. And what I mean by that is, for example, one of the reasons why Nixon lost to John F. Kennedy in the 1960s for a presidential debate is because that was the first televised debate in American history. If the debate was done on radio, Nixon probably would have won that election his first time around. But because John F. Kennedy was so handsome, so charismatic, his looks won him the debate, not the facts and the debate talking points that he was doing. So for radio, you have to have a certain persona. That's why, unfortunately, there's a saying in media that says, he has a great face for radio. What does that mean? It kind of means like, oh, you're not handsome enough for TV. Because on TV, your power of persuasion doesn't come from your words only. It comes from how you dress, how you impress through your looks. In books, it's more of a long form, inquisitive, meditative exercise in seeing multiple views with multiple pieces of evidence to support each view, and you as the reader reading not only that one book but multiple books on one subject, and then after weeks, months, years of reading multiple books on that one subject, can you come to something close that you call truth. So that's, in books, it's a much more active exercise. With social media is kind of like Werewolf. It rewards the loudest. But then again, okay, put yourself now, let's look at society. Let's look at, in this scenario, you have social media, the medium, you have the users, right? So the consumers of the social media, you have the creators of the social media, and then you have the owners of those companies. Who is the wolf in that situation? And who's the moderator? And who's the villager? Clearly, the villager is the consumer of media, of social media. The moderator, the person that tells us the status of the game, or the person that we get the truth from, is the creator. So in this instance, it's me. And the wolf is the algorithm. Because the wolf has the ability to amplify or silence my voice. They are the informed minority. And they only allow certain moderators or creators to exist. And that is how they control access to truth to the majority. Not by necessarily lying to the majority, but by excluding other points of view, by excluding another version of the story. What's interesting? I live in Vietnam now, and sometimes I talk. I run across people in the streets and cafes, and I'm political, and I mentioned the Vietnam War and how they feel about it, and it's younger people, so it's their parents and grandparents, how they felt about it, and they get kind of confused. They're like, which war? I was like, in 1960s, 70s. Oh, you mean the American War? So they're quite a simple little change of perspective, a simple little change in the story. They literally think they're taught and view reality from, this is a simple example, but we think of the Vietnam War, but they think of that war called the American War. And automatically that script, just that shift in perspective now shifts who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, who's the hero, who's the villain, who's the rebels, who's the terrorists. Just that simple shift in perspective, the name of the movie you're watching changes all the characters and their rules. And who is dictating the names, the truths of today's events? They are the werewolves. They are the informed minority. And yeah, the villagers can win. But statistically, the villagers win, I think, only like 20% of the time. 80% of the time, the werewolves win. And it's because in order for the villagers to win, they need to collaborate. They need to collaborate, and they need the ability to not use emotion, but rationality, logic, and deduction to win, on top of staying together and collaborating. On top of, in the meantime, the two werewolves trying to sabotage their collaboration, their rational thinking, and their emotional states. My God, it explains everything. It explains everything. The people who sow division, distrust, and fear and chaos, they're the enemy. Either wittingly or unwittingly. Unwittingly, even worse. Because there's only so much energy you have to be able to debate and discuss with people. This is what I learned after COVID. If I understand within 5 minutes, I can understand what your viewpoint is, even after 5 years, and you're still sticking to your guns. Okay, no problem. Enjoy the movie you're watching. I can't waste my energy on you anymore. I'm gonna go congregate with my other like-minded people. And the reason is because like-minded people need to, especially the people that know the truth or something close to the truth. Once we reach a certain critical mass, we will affect the NPCs that have plagued this planet, and we will get them on our side. But until then, we need to get together, and we cannot waste our energy, our precious energy, and we cannot be doubted, silenced, and feared into thinking, allowing them to doubt and fear and silence ourselves. Never, ever again. That's what COVID taught me. If you believe in something, say it, because when you say it, then you can have a debate. You can go back and forth. But at least, you stand behind your beliefs. You don't have your beliefs spoon-fed to you. That's what the narrative is. The narrative is, you know what? I've outsourced my thinking. I've outsourced my critical thinking skills on major world events that actually have a huge impact on my day-to-day life. I can't think about it. It's too stressful. I wanna eat my fast food. I wanna just have my job. I wanna have my 9 to 5. Please leave me alone. I'm trying to watch Netflix. I'm really trying to watch the new Seinfeld. Okay, fine. 80% of you that think like that, you've outsourced your thinking. But those 80% of you people, if you've outsourced your thinking, don't you fucking dare tell me on what I should think about reality. And you can see I'm getting worked up, and that is something that I'm trying to become wiser at. Once I encounter an NPC, I cannot waste any more energy on trying to convince him or her to drink from the well of truth. That is a journey you have to do on your own, and that is what prophets and deities since the dawn of time have said. You can only lead a horse to water. Accept it. And sometimes it's the people that you love most that you have to cut them away in a certain sense, and in a certain sense they die. I have friends right now that I'm not friends with anymore because okay, yeah, we disagreed on COVID, lockdowns, mask mandates, medicine mandates. We disagreed at the point when it was going on, because everything was highly charged and energetic and people were dying, and Grandma was suffocating, and it was emotionally charged. But today, brother, I'm welcoming you with open arms. I'm not antagonistic at all. But if I still smell a hint of the narrative on your breath, brother, have a nice life. I'm out. I cannot waste my time anymore. I need to find my people. This is why this game, Werewolf, is such a fascinating, amazing metaphor to the current state of informational warfare we are in right now. The most powerful companies in the world, and I'm not talking about Meta, I'm not talking about Google, I'm not talking about ChatGPT, I'm not talking about the people that pre-filter what the truth is. I'm talking about where they get their money from. The advertisers. The most powerful companies in the world are the advertisers because they're tasked with selling the product to you. So by definition, they have to have more money because they take the proceeds and money from every company on the planet. They are the ones that are the werewolves. They are the ones that are sowing doubt, fear, emotional disturbances so that they can convince you, if you just wear this cologne, if you just have this haircut, if you just wear this watch, you're going to get laid more often. That you're much of a less of a human being unless you actually have that Gucci belt or the Gucci slides. And again, this version of reality that they're presenting to you, the only way that version of reality manifests itself and unfolds in space and time and actually becomes reality is with your participation. I refuse to participate with the official narrative. Whether it's true or not, I cannot outsource my critical thinking skills to the priesthood. It's a much safer bet for you to be skeptical of what the priests are saying, and then with your own work and life experience, you come to a similar conclusion as the priests. Okay, fine, they were right, but at least I came to the conclusion my own. It's like learning how to fix a car. I wish I was a mechanic. Instead, I'm forced to take my car to the shop and hope and pray that he's not going to screw me. Imagine the amount of confidence you have in yourself if you could just use your hands and fix your car by yourself. Now apply that same line of reasoning to this, your brain, to everything, not just fixing cars. How do you play basketball? Learn how to play basketball. Yeah, you can watch a YouTube tutorial how to alter your elbow and work on your follow through, but you got to go out and do it. Same thing with the perception of reality. You got to go out and participate. You got to go out and sniff out the BS. I am not exaggerating when I say this. I say this to my closest ones, to my most loved ones, to the ones I cherish the most. There's a tension in the air. And I'm not saying metaphysically, I'm saying physically. There's an electric charge in the air. You can feel it. We are on the precipice. The cocoon that we have been sleeping in is starting to crack. The snake is starting to shed its skin. We are about to enter, we are in currently a great moment of transformation. The cocoon is hatching, it's ripping apart. The first wing has escaped. We're about to take flight. We're about to turn into that butterfly. But Is that butterfly going to fly off into a majestic wonderland of reality? Or is that butterfly going to fly into a net and then get put into a nice little terrarium where the supreme being, the owner, can watch and observe them? And this transformation that's taking place right now, yes, it's a collective transformation, but that collective is made up of individuals. You do not have to participate in the reality that they're trying to convince you is the only way forward. Your expression and experience of reality does not depend on what they say is real. Quite literally. That is the priestly advice and information that they have been guarding for millennia. You are what you think about. It all starts up here. You are what you think about. Everything good, everything bad, every wonderful chapter, every depressing chapter of your life up until this moment started up here. The businesses that you built, the businesses that have failed, the relationships that you've had, the people that have died. Physically, these things happened, but your mental perception of them is everything. You know, if a close family member dies, not everybody in the family reacts the same way. Why is that? Well, because every family member is experiencing their own reality. An abusive father could have been best friends with the mother who was turning a blind eye to the abuse. So when he passes away, the children secretly rejoice, while the mother is the grieving widow. You are what you think about. Everything that you want out of life starts up here. This is not woo-woo hippie BS. Every dream that you've ever had, every manifestation, every mantra you've ever chanted, every actionable thing that you can do in this life, the act of creation, you having a relationship with somebody and creating a human child, it starts up here first. It starts up here. Do you have the courage to approach that good-looking girl at the cafe? Just think of your life as a series of tiny pebbles that you're throwing at the river, the stream, the ocean of reality, and you're throwing them constantly, and these little pebbles are creating tiny little waves, and sometimes these waves intersect and they create little crescendos, and sometimes those waves turn into tsunamis. But each individual wave has a function, a wave function, and it affects how physical reality unfolds, and with each pebble you throw or don't throw, it affects that ocean, that little slice of ocean that you're in. That's your reality. That's not to say that the entire ocean doesn't exist. And that's not to say that the little pebbles that you're throwing out can't, in conjunction with other people's pebbles, create a tsunami, an orchestra of waves. That's how reality works. That's the collective consciousness that Jung talks about. You are what you think about. Thank you for joining me on this week's episode of Globe Games Podcast. And I'd also like to thank the woman behind the camera. You know who you are. Come join us next week.